Welcome. We have a custom-tailored deep dive designed specifically for you today.
Yeah, and we are venturing into a space that, well, it dictates almost everything you interact with online.
Right. Even if the mechanics remain completely invisible to the average user.
Exactly. We are exploring the highly technical, strictly engineered world of modern search engine optimization.
And to really get into this, we are pulling from an incredibly comprehensive stack of sources.
Digital strategy documents, deep dive case studies.
Technical glossaries, all straight from the digital marketing portfolio of Miguel Ferreira over at MFMD.pt.
It's a goldmine of back-end data.
It really is. And our mission today is to uncover why true organic visibility is no longer just a marketing function.
Right, it is a full-blown engineering discipline.
We are going to look at how site architecture, server speed, and pristine code directly dictate lead conversion. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to contextualize what we are looking at in these strategy documents, we have to acknowledge a major shift.
The era of treating a website like a static digital brochure
Is completely dead.
dead and gone.
The sources extensively detail this paradigm shift into what is referred to as Web 5.0.
Yeah, 5.0.
Right. In this environment, a website has to operate as an intelligent, active agent.
Because we are dealing with generative AI and search algorithms like Google's SGE.
Yeah, and they no longer just parse text strings, they map entity architecture.
Entity architecture, that was the phrase that really caught my eye.
They're looking for interconnected nodes of data that define your business, your industry authority, and your specific location.
I was reading through the strategy documents, and there is a specific philosophy outlined there that completely flipped my perspective on this.
Oh, about being findable versus understandable.
Yes, exactly. The text argues that it is no longer enough to be findable. Your business must be understandable by machines in order to be relevant to humans.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about how these bots actually work.
But how does that translate practically into the code? I mean, how does an algorithm actually conceptualize a business entity rather than just reading a keyword on a page?
What's fascinating here is how you build that bridge using technical data structuring,
Okay.
specifically through advanced schema markup.
Right, schema.
Instead of hoping Google's crawlers infer what a piece of data means based on its proximity to a keyword, schema acts as a direct dialogue with the search engine.
Almost like an API.
Exactly like an API. You
Oh.
are injecting JSON LD code into the header of the page that explicitly categorizes information.
So you're not just leaving it up to chance.
No, you tell the machine parser, this alphanumeric string isn't just text, it is the unique tax identification number for this corporate entity.
Oh, wow.
Or, this coordinate represents a service radius.
Yeah.
You are feeding the algorithm a pristine, pre-organized relational database.
Removing the guesswork.
Completely.
Yeah.
And when you remove the computational guesswork for the crawler, the algorithm inherently trusts your domain more.
Which is a massive organic multiplier. Which brings up a fascinating technical mechanism mentioned in the portfolio. The sources highlight the use of custom Python scripts.
Right, for data collection.
Yeah, to automate data collection and analyze behavioral patterns. Most people associate SEO with content writers, not Python developers.
I know, but it moves the entire optimization process from intuition to empirical data science.
Oh, so.
Well, instead of guessing how users navigate a site, a Python script can parse gigabytes of server log files in seconds.
Just reading the raw server data.
Yeah. It maps out exactly how search engine bots are utilizing their crawl budget across your domain.
And the crawl budget is basically how much time Google is willing to spend looking at your site, right?
Exactly. So if the script identifies that Googlebot is getting trapped in an endless loop of parameterized URLs on your blog,
Just going in circles.
right, while completely ignoring your high-converting service pages,
Yeah.
you have a structural crisis.
The major one.
Python automates the detection of these behavioral anomalies. You can then use those data models to execute a surgical restructuring of your site's hierarchy.
Ensuring the crawl budget is spent exactly where it drives revenue.
Precisely.
It sounds like treating the website as a highly optimized relational database rather than just a collection of pages.
That's the best way to look at it.
But having a perfectly indexed relational database doesn't matter if the server takes too long to execute the query.
No, it doesn't. Latency is a killer.
The portfolio documents spend a significant amount of time addressing latency. And the analogy I always come back to for this, forget the old storefront on a broken street comparison.
Right.
Think of it like dealing with a poorly indexed SQL database. You can have the most valuable data in the world, But if the query takes 10 seconds to return a result,
The application times out.
the application times out and the user drops the session.
That is a much more accurate representation of how core web vitals operate.
Core Web Vitals. Let's
Yeah.
dig into that.
Sure. Search engines use metrics like largest contentful paint and cumulative layout shift to measure the rendering pipeline of a page.
Basically how fast the page visually loads for the user.
Exactly. If the server response time, the time to first byte, is lagging, or if the document object model is blocked by render blocking JavaScript.
Google's algorithms actively demote the domain.
They do. They calculate that the latency will cause user frustration.
So they just stop serving your digital infrastructure to high-intent searchers.
They just cut you off.
The sources detail a very specific programmatic solution to one of the biggest bottlenecks in that rendering pipeline.
Image weight.
Yes, image weight. Miguel implemented a custom image converter tool designed exclusively to transform legacy formats.
Like heavy TIFFs and older JPEGs.
Right, turning them into next-generation WebP formats.
WebP is a game changer.
According to the technical glossaries, we are looking at a format that is consistently 30% lighter with no loss in visual fidelity.
And a 30% reduction in payload across an entire media library fundamentally alters server load.
Just frees up so much bandwidth.
But the true value of deploying WebP isn't just saving gigabytes of bandwidth. It acts as a direct algorithmic signal to Google
Telling them what?
that your engineering prioritizes the mobile user experience.
Eh.
Over half of all global traffic is mobile now.
And often operating on highly variable network speed.
Exactly. When you serve WebP, the browser renders the visual assets in milliseconds, preventing the user from hitting the back button.
Which directly impacts mobile retention. The documents show that deploying this format lowers the bounce rate.
Which feeds Google's RankBrain algorithm with positive user engagement signals.
It is a compounding technical loop.
A very profitable loop.
And to see how all of these structural and speed optimizations scale, we need to look at the centerpiece of the provided case studies. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the INOV.AM project.
Yes. The INOV.AM agenda. It is a masterclass in handling complex taxonomy at scale.
For context, for those listening, this is a mobilizing program for additive manufacturing innovation, funded under the Portuguese Recovery and Resilience Plan.
It is a massive strategic consortium of scientific entities and leading manufacturing companies.
The logistics of just mapping that ecosystem sound like a nightmare.
It's incredibly dense data.
The technical constraints Miguel faced were staggering. He had to build a centralized digital platform that organized consortium members by highly specific data points.
Products, processes, and services.
Right, or PPS. Also, work packages, tax identification numbers, and economic activity codes.
And on top of that architecture, the site integrated a searchable database of 1,708 exhibiting companies.
Structuring a taxonomy to filter that many distinct corporate entities by 4 different cross-referencing metrics.
Is incredibly dangerous for front-end performance.
Why is that?
Well, in a standard WordPress or CMS build, querying that many post meta fields simultaneously would cause massive database bloat.
The DOM size would explode.
Exactly, and the browser would just freeze trying to render the DOM tree. This is where Google Lighthouse becomes the ultimate arbiter of code quality.
Right, Lighthouse. That's the open source automated auditing tool developers use to measure the technical health of a page.
Yes.
And the scores achieved on the IOV.AM portal are, frankly, hard to believe.
They are phenomenal.
Overall, the project achieved a 97 out of 100.
Which is almost unheard of for a database that heavy.
Breaking that down, the portal hit 90 in performance, 93 in accessibility, 92 in SEO, and a flawless 100 in best practices.
Perfect 100.
I have to push back a bit on that 100 in best practices, though.
Right.
Getting a perfect score there on a site with 1,700 directory listings, doesn't that usually require stripping the site down to bare bones HTML?
That is a very common misconception in the development community.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Best practices in Lighthouse are not strictly about minimalism. They are about code integrity and security standards.
Okay, so what does 100 actually mean then?
Achieving a 100 means the audit found 0 deprecated APIs. It means all cross-origin resource sharing is strictly defined.
No loose ends.
Right. The JavaScript payloads are entirely secure without known vulnerabilities, and the aspect ratios of dynamically loading elements are perfectly mathematically defined to prevent layout shifts.
So you can have a highly complex, dynamic application, provided the underlying code is pristine.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a 100 in best practices on a heavy database is the strongest possible trust signal you can send to an algorithm.
Because Google looks at the INOV.AM platform and verifies that the code is modern,
The SSL implementation is flawless.
and the JS won't break the user's browser.
Right. Therefore, the algorithm has total confidence in ranking the domain for high-value global queries regarding additive manufacturing.
So what does this all mean for the back-end maintenance that users never even see? The sources pivot aggressively from data taxonomy to two critical silent conversion drivers.
Web accessibility and cybersecurity.
Let's start with web accessibility, specifically WCAG compliance.
Too many organizations treat this merely as a legal or ethical checklist. Adding some basic alt text to images and moving on.
Checking a box.
Exactly. But in technical SEO, accessibility is a foundational multiplier.
Because search engine bots parse a website very similarly to how an assistive screen reader traverses the DOM tree, correct?
Exactly the same way. A screen reader relies on semantic HTML.
It needs the H1, H2, and H3 tags to be in strict logical order.
It needs ARA labels for dynamic elements. It needs the navigation to be fully functional via keyboard inputs.
So when a developer writes clean semantic HTML to satisfy WCAG requirements,
They are simultaneously handing Google's indexing bots a perfectly legible map of the site's hierarchy.
you are removing the friction for the machine. The algorithm doesn't have to guess what is a navigation link and what is body copy.
This raises an important question you have to ask yourself. When you deploy code, are you only building for a visual browser, or are you structuring data for a machine parser?
Accessibility ensures the machine parser understands the context of the content seamlessly.
It really does.
And then there's the cybersecurity aspect.
Yeah.
The strategy documents emphasize the implementation of web application firewalls, DDoS protection, and strict DNS management.
Security is usually handled by the IT department, not the marketing team.
Right. How directly does a DNS misconfiguration actually impact SEO?
It can obliterate years of organic growth overnight.
Overnight.
Yes. Search algorithms are inherently designed to protect their users. If your SSL certificate expires, or if a vulnerability allows a malicious script to execute on your domain, Google instantly flags the site.
They throw up that full-page interstitial warning that the site is dangerous.
And from an SEO perspective, this halts all crawling and indexation immediately.
And from a conversion perspective, it destroys brand trust. Nobody's going to submit a lead generation form or upload a procurement document on a site that their browser just flagged as a security threat.
Nobody. Which is why technical SEO demands ongoing proactive maintenance. A website is a decaying asset.
Links break.
Plugins become deprecated, server environments change.
The documentation actually includes a brilliant case study on that exact type of decay involving the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Avero District, or ADA-CCI.
That was a massive cleanup operation.
They had a legacy platform, and during a migration process, they ended up with approximately 970 broken document URLs.
A 404 error at that scale acts as a massive leak in a domain's link equity.
When search engine bots hit 970 dead ends, they calculate that the site is poorly maintained.
And they significantly downgrade the domain's overall crawl priority.
But Miguel didn't just install a standard redirect plugin or edit the htaccess file manually to fix this.
No, that would have been too risky or too heavy.
He developed a custom mini plugin explicitly engineered to bulk fix those 970 URLs. What is the engineering advantage of custom coding a mini plugin instead of just using an off-the-shelf SEO tool?
Off-the-shelf redirect managers are notoriously bloated. They load unnecessary JavaScript and execute heavy database queries on every single page load.
Which destroys the time to first byte we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Conversely, manually writing nearly 1,000 regular expressions into an htaccess file creates an incredibly fragile server environment.
Where one syntax error crashes the entire site.
Right. So by developing a custom, lightweight mini plugin, he bypassed the bloat.
The plugin programmatically queried the legacy IDs.
It mapped them to the new permalink structures.
And executed 301 redirects dynamically without adding any overhead to the server's rendering pipeline.
It is a surgical strike instead of a blunt instrument.
And the ROI on that specific technical cleanup, combined with the subsequent optimization, is staggering. The portfolio documents a 403% increase in site clicks.
And a 502% increase in file downloads for ADA-CCI.
Over 500% more downloads.
That metric proves the entire thesis of the strategy documents. They didn't necessarily need to write 500% more content.
Or spend 500% more on paid ads.
No, they needed to repair the underlying infrastructure.
Once the search engine could crawl the site efficiently, understand the entity architecture, and navigate without hitting 404 dead ends.
The existing content was finally able to perform at its maximum algorithmic potential.
I want you to evaluate your own digital footprint through this highly technical lens.
When was the last time you ran a deep programmatic audit on your infrastructure?
Are heavy, unoptimized DOM trees silently draining your ad budget?
Because every single dollar routed into paid traffic is completely wasted if the landing page requires 4 seconds of render-blocking JavaScript to execute before the user sees a button.
That is the ultimate takeaway from Miguel's portfolio. Countless organizations pour marketing budgets into surface-level content while their back-end architecture is actively repelling search engine crawlers.
True SEO success in the current landscape is a disciplined, rigorous engineering process.
The keywords are merely the facade.
The site architecture, the database query speeds, the security protocols, and the semantic HTML are what actually generate and convert leads.
As we transition deeper into Web 5.0, the technical rigor required to maintain that visibility is only going to escalate.
Absolutely. Search engines are no longer reading your text. They are auditing the total technical health of your digital ecosystem.
So I want to leave you with an upgraded analogy to mull over. If your website's underlying code were suddenly translated into a physical building, what would it look like?
Would it be a welcoming, lightning-fast superstore?
Or a confusing maze with broken locks and doors that take 10 seconds to open? In the era of Web 5.0, the machines already know the answer. The question is, do you?